Hey there, drone fans. Rick here again from Drone Valley. Today's clip is the first in a series I'll be posting over the next few weeks to try and answer all the questions you've asked me on the brand new DJI Smart Controller. Now, normally what I would do with a product like this is take the top 10 questions, put a single clip together and try and answer them all in one clip. But that's not going to work for this product because first off, you've asked me way too many questions to put into one clip. It'll be like a 4-hour marathon. And second, a lot of the questions you've asked are a little bit complicated and they require a little bit more explanation than just a yes or no answer. So I don't want to shortcut this. I want to make sure you get all the details you need about this device, and I'll explain quite a bit about the testing we've done on it over the last couple of weeks and why I think it's kind of a unique product in the market space. Now, this particular clip, I'm going to start off with the question I've gotten most often from everybody is, why is it so expensive? And the second part of that question is the product worth the money? So that's a tricky question to answer, but what I'm going to do in this clip is walk through some comparisons and alternatives to not using the Smart Controller so you can get a feel for maybe how that price makes sense or doesn't make sense. Then I'll talk about the pros of the product, the cons of the product, and then finally come back and honestly try to answer that question, is this product worth the money they're charging for it? So stay tuned and we'll get started on the clip. In this first section, I thought it would be helpful to do a side-by-side comparison between the DJI Smart Controller and the other options you have for flying your Mavic 2 Quad. Now, the first thing you're going to need to get started is the controller assembly, and the good news is, if you buy the standard package from DJI, whether it's a Mavic 2 Pro or a Mavic 2 Zoom, the controller comes as part of that kit. In addition to that controller, you'll need a smart display device that's capable of running the DJI Go 4 application so you can watch the FPV view from your camera and you can receive the telemetry information and control signals from the quad. Now, flyers that have a newer phone that may have a bigger display or brighter display could choose to use that phone as the control device. The only thing you have to be aware of is that that particular phone or tablet has to be compatible with the DJI Go 4 application, and it should have enough CPU horsepower and memory to reliably run that application. Other flyers that want to use a dedicated device may opt for the Crystal Sky monitor, and that comes in a couple of different sizes and brightnesses. You can get one with 1,000 nits or 2,000 nit brightness, which means you can see that in broad daylight. Other flyers still like larger displays, so they may opt to go with a tablet and have that bigger view of what they're looking at when they're flying. All three of these options work well. Now, in addition to that, if you can't fit the display device you're working into the handles, you'll need some kind of mount. Now, if you go with the Crystal Sky display, the mount for that is a very specialized mount that only works with the Crystal Sky monitor, and you'll have to add that to your kit. If you're going with a tablet that's larger than, say, an iPad mini 4 that does fit into the handles, you'll need a tablet mount as well. So that's an additional cost that you'll have to add into the package. So let's look through those three packages and see what the cost is. I'll start these comparisons with the least expensive option, which involves using a phone or tablet you already own. So let's assume the device you have can reliably run the DJI Go 4 application. You're happy with the size of the display, and it's bright enough for outdoor use. Let's also assume it's small enough to fit into the handles of the controller, because that'll lower the cost of the solution even further. So you do have the cost of the controller, which is $379, and you really can't avoid that because it's built into the cost of the product, and that's exactly what it would cost you to replace that controller. The good news is you have zero cost for the display because you already own the device, and because it fits into the handles of the controller, you don't need a mount for the tablet either. So that means that total cost for the lowest cost solution is $379, which again is built into the cost of the product. But let's say you want to upgrade the size of that display to a tablet. Now, we did a little bit of research, and the least expensive tablet on the market today that will reliably run that application is about $379. But that tablet is going to require a tablet mount as well, which is another $25. So that middle solution will run you a total of $783. But let's say you really want a bright display and you go for a Crystal Sky monitor. Now, we've priced this out with a 5.5-inch 1,000 nit display, which is brighter than any tablet or phone that's on the market today. That'll set you back $469, but you also need a specialized mount to attach that to the controller, which is another $79, which brings that high brightness solution up to $927 compared to the other two options. Now, when you look at the three of those, obviously if you own the product, it's going to be less expensive, but if you don't, you decide to upgrade to a better display, it can get pricey pretty quickly. And what I find is most flyers start off with something they own and then eventually upgrade to something larger or brighter down the road. Now, let's compare that to the actual DJI Smart Controller. The controller itself, if you buy it as an accessory, is $650, which does seem expensive until you consider all the stuff they packed inside that product. I mean, you've got that Crystal Sky monitor at 1,000 nits, you've got the original controller built in there. So as a standalone accessory, it can be a bit expensive, but when you understand again what's in there, it doesn't seem so bad. But let's compare it to the combo, because that's where it gets really interesting. So if you buy the standard Mavic 2 Pro or Mavic 2 Zoom with the basic controller, it's $1,499. But if you buy it with the DJI Smart Controller, it's $1,899, which means buying it as a combo, you're actually getting that upgrade to the DJI Smart Controller for $400, which is less than the price of the Crystal Sky monitor. So I understand as an accessory it looks expensive, but buying as part of the combo, you really save quite a bit of money on it as well. Now that we've done a quick cost comparison of the DJI Smart Controller compared to all the other options you have for flying your Mavic 2 Quad, I thought I'd take a minute and talk about the pros and cons of the product itself, because whenever I'm evaluating a new technology like this, I always like to understand what does it bring to the table as far as features and functions, and are those features and functions worth the price of that product? So I always put an upside list together and a downside list together to point out the things that I love about it and the things that maybe aren't so perfect. So I'll go through those now, and I'll start with the upside stuff. So I love the DJI Smart Controller for a lot of reasons, because it solves a lot of problems for me, and I'll list some of those here. The first one has to do with the hassle factor of connecting up my smartphone to the controller with a cable and a mount and everything else I got to drag along. I've got to charge the controller. I got to make sure my phone or my tablet is charged. If I have a faulty cable, I can't fly that afternoon. This eliminates all those hassles. It puts everything I need to fly in one single package. I can charge it, be out the door, and know that I have everything with me that I need to get up in the air that afternoon. So I love the hassle factor being less on this product than it is on a combined product. Now I know a lot of people are going to argue it's reliable, I'll put up with the hassle. That's totally up to you if you're going to do that. For me, having one unit like this that I can take and spin up and be off and flying very quickly is nice. The second thing is, and again, this is a debatable point, but I find it to be more reliable because the combination of you taking your phone or finding just the right tablet with the right operating system on it, with the right patch level on it, with the right cable to connect it up to the controller, all those different pieces fitting together and working well together can be a bit of a headache, and it can be pretty spotty. It's almost like when you're outside trying to water the lawn and you have a 150-foot garden hose versus 6 25-foot garden hoses, and you hook them all together, you're going to get leaks and stuff all the way along the way. The water pressure is never going to be as good. So having it all in one package that's controlled by DJI, it's a sealed package with the operating system, the firmware, and everything sort of completely tested and ready to go in one package, just means to me it's going to be more reliable in the field. The other thing I love about it is the brightness of the screen, and that's something you can't debate. Any portable device you're going to bring along and put in the standard controller is going to be dimmer out there in bright sunlight. The fact that it's got 1,000 nits built into it means that it's really, really bright compared to any other product on the market. In most cases, twice as bright as the average phone or tablet you're going to use in the field. Then the last thing is the feature set that's built into it. So they've added HDMI output, which means I can use it with a larger monitor. I can use a recorder with it, which is great. I've got the ability to use an SD card and do recording on it. It's really just a complete package all the way around. So the features that are built into this that aren't available on the standard controller are things that, for me, in a lot of cases, tip the balance in favor of the controller. All right, so that's the good stuff. Let's talk about the bad stuff, the downside. Now, there are a few things here that I'm going to pick on that may be something they're going to fix in a future version of this with firmware or tweaks to the product, but right now these are issues with the product. So the first one is the limited amount of applications that you can load onto this product. Now, I love the fact that I can run my DJI Go 4 application and it flies the quad really well, but I'd love to be able to sideload a lot of other applications. And I know they talked about it being a more open system than Crystal Sky monitor is, and it absolutely is, but it's still really limited on what you can load in there, primarily because it's missing a lot of the Google services required for some of those apps to run. Now, I've got a separate clip I'm going to talk about what apps you can load and how you can kind of get around that, but for today, there is a limited number of applications that are loadable on that particular product. I'd love for it to be a little bit more open, but I understand there's a balance between being too open and being too closed. I think they did an okay job with it, but I'd love for it to be able to load more applications that I use all the time. The next thing is the limited number of drones it supports. That's a bit of a hassle, and I know that it's based on OcuSync 2. It'll fly all the Mavic products, so today it'll fly the Mavic 2 Zoom and the Mavic 2 Pro. The pilot application is coming along for the Enterprise product as well, so once that's released, those 4 drones will fly. I had actually used it with other drones. I'm flying my Tello with it right now, so the Tello application loads up and I can fly it over Wi-Fi. But the fact that it's a limited number of drones really means for most customers out there that wanted a universal controller to fly everything, it doesn't have all those radio transmitters in it, so it really is limited to the Mavic products at this point. But still, that's okay for me because I use it with my Mavic 2 Pro and my Mavic 2 Zoom to fly those 2 products when I'm out doing professional shoots. Another problem with it is the different stream of firmware. And what I mean by that is the DJI Go 4 application that's on here is different than the general one you'd use on an Android phone or an Apple phone. So you're always going to have this delay in different revs of that stuff coming out. So you may see features come out for the general release DJI Go 4 that aren't on this product initially, and it may take time for them to get on there. So that's something else to be concerned about. They've been pretty good with it. They were a little bit slow with them coming out in the Crystal Sky Monitor. They're still a little slow in this one, but I think they're ramping up quickly to fix that problem. The last thing is the investment. You're going to spend extra money to do this. So if this thing is something you definitely crave and it's going to fit into your workspace and it's going to make your life easier, it's worth the investment. But that's a pretty sizable investment, because even with the kit, you're spending an extra $400 to get this included. So you've really got to be sure that it's something you're going to use an awful lot to get value out of that additional investment. The worst part is if you've already bought a Mavic 2 and have the standard controller, it's a $650 up step for you. So that's hard to swallow, I think, for a lot of people out there. And that was what the original sticker shock was around this particular product was, holy smokes, I just bought this really expensive drone. Now you want another $650 for the controller. It would have been better, and maybe they're thinking about doing this, to add some kind of trade-in program where if you bought the original kit, you could send back the original controller, get some credit against this thing to sort of knock the price down. But on the con list or the downside list, the additional investment really is something you have to consider. So all those things side by side really help you determine, is it worth the price? And that's what I'm going to get into next. So stay tuned and we'll talk about that. In this last section, I'll try to answer the second part of that question, which is a whole lot more difficult. Is the DJI Smart Controller worth the price? Now, the reason that's a hard question to answer is because it depends. Everybody's different. Your budget's different than mine. Your flying habits are different. Maybe you're only out every other weekend flying for fun, whereas I'm putting my quad up every day of the week flying commercially for clients. So for me, it makes perfect sense. For you, it may seem like an extravagance. And I don't want to sit here and waffle, but I wish it was a black and white answer. I do believe that it's worth the money, but is it worth the money to you? That's the question I've got to answer in this segment. So what I thought I'd do is, instead of sitting here waffling, I'd put together a couple of scenarios where it makes perfect sense for you to own this. So if you fit into one of these categories, probably a smart buy for you. But again, it's a very personal decision that comes down to your budget, your flying needs, how much value you're going to get out of it. Do you fly a lot? Do you fly occasionally? And these circumstances that I'm going to describe in a minute, I think will help you frame that a little bit better. So the first place that I think it makes perfect sense for you to own the Smart Controller is if you're doing any kind of commercial flying. If you're a commercial flyer like I am, and you're putting your quad up every day, you want to have something that's reliable, you want to have the latest technology, and the Smart Controller covers those needs. And if you talk to anybody that uses tools for a living, because I consider that a tool, they'll tell you buy the best tools you can and take the best care you can of those tools. So for me, this is a tool that extends my ability to fly, and as a commercial flyer, I need the best that's out there. So for me, it makes perfect sense. If you're a commercial flyer, it probably makes sense for you as well. The second circumstance where it makes sense is if you're flying in a lot of sunny places. Now, I know that sounds ridiculous because during the summer it's sunny everywhere, but if you're in some of those Midwest areas, Arizona, Florida, where it seems like the sun is hotter than it is anywhere else on the planet, and you can't see your display, you're going to want to upgrade to something like this. So if you're going to eventually end up with a crystal sky and that extra mount and all the extra things you got to go through to add that, this would make a lot more sense because it's all in one package. So if you're flying in a sunny area, probably a good investment for you. The other place that it makes sense is if you haven't bought your Mavic 2 yet. Maybe you've been on the fence about a Mavic 2 Pro, Mavic 2 Zoom, you've been waiting for the price to come down. That's the perfect place to make this decision, because if you've already bought the kit, like I've explained earlier, you've already got a remote controller, and for you to add this to your kit, it's going to cost you $650. Whereas at the point of initial purchase, it's only a $400 delta. Now that's not a small amount of money. I understand that's a tremendous amount of money, but if you're going to make that decision, saving that $250 at the point of purchase is really a big deal. So again, if you're on the fence and you haven't bought your Mavic 2 yet, now's the time to make that decision to really assess your needs for the controller you're going to want to use out in the field. Another good place for it would be if you've got an older phone or tablet and you know you're going to have to upgrade to fly that Mavic 2. So if you haven't bought it already and you've got an older phone or tablet, you know you're going to end up buying something new anyway, this is a perfect companion for that quad. The last thing I'll say, and this is kind of personal for me, and again, I don't know if it applies to you guys out there individually, but I'm at the point in my life where I love flying so much that I'm out every chance I get. So any beautiful day, I'm in my car driving to a beautiful location and I want to put the quad up. And more than once, I've had kind of a ruined afternoon because of a bad cable or because the controller wasn't charged fully or my phone got flaky. Having something like this that I'm sure that I charge it, head out the door, have it with me, know that I can use it, I can extend my flying day because it's got a really strong battery in it, to me just makes it all worth it. And to ruin a day like that because the equipment is a little bit flaky or it isn't charged correctly, I know that's on me. I could make sure that I charge it before I leave, but we're all human. We forget stuff. So more than once I've shown up on location and needed a controller that had to be charged in the field, and it just takes away from the whole experience. So at my age, having a controller like this that's a little bit more expensive than the initial controller just makes perfect sense for me to be sure that I can enjoy that day after I've driven 2 hours to get to a location. So if you're like me and you got to have the latest technology and you're a nerd and you like this kind of stuff, that's the 5th place where it makes sense for you. So I hope this clip has helped in your decision of whether this controller is worth the money or not. It's an impossible question for me to answer. I know I'm going to get a lot of people with their opinions below asking, hey Rick, you're crazy, 650 is insane, they should have sold it for $400. I've tried to explain why they can't sell it for less, because the amount of technology they've packed into this package really exceeds that cost by quite a bit if you add up all the parts that are in there. Plus, it's a brand new product, so yeah, I expect it's going to come down in price over time. Maybe they'll actually offer a trade-in program where you can trade in your old controller. That would be wonderful. So DJI, if you're listening, that's a pretty good idea to do that. But at the end of the day, all of these toys that we buy are really up to us what we decide to use. So you individually have to decide, does this make sense, or is it okay to go with the standard controller? All I'm trying to do is present the financials behind why it does make sense for this not being that insanely priced for all the tech that's packed in there, and maybe some use cases of where it makes sense to own it. So hopefully you find this stuff helpful. I love putting these clips together, and like I said at the top of this clip, I've got about 7 more that I'll be posting over the next couple of days that talk about loading apps and how to charge it and all kinds of other cool things that we figured out about this remote controller. So this series is going to be really, really good. I think you guys are going to really enjoy it. And if you've got questions that you want to have answered, send them in the comments below, because there are still clips that we're working on that I may want to add some of your stuff into as well. That's pretty much it for today. So thanks an awful lot for watching. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, hit that subscribe button down there. We'd love to welcome you to the Drone Valley family. We got a lot of content coming beyond the Mavic 2 products. We're talking about Osmo. We got a lot of other high-tech stuff. A lot of submersible drones we're going to be talking about in the springtime. So definitely subscribe to the channel. You won't want to miss any of that cool stuff. So thanks again for watching. And until next time, happy flying.